What's up, gang? It's Garage Goons, and I'm your boy Tyler. You're watching the most trash show on YouTube. And today, I just kind of wanted to talk about. You've seen the title, you've seen the thumbnail. Some of you guys might be triggered right now, but they are, in large, lying to you right now about Jiu Jitsu. Okay, there's like a clip I saw on like Joe Rogan. Like, first off, let's talk about like the trendiness of Jiu Jitsu. Jiu Jitsu, like 10, 15 years ago when I was rolling, every day and really trying to hone my craft and get good at Jiu Jitsu, it was a thing that you did if you were going to do MMA. And they did have jiu-jitsu tournaments back then, but it wasn't cool like it is now. I don't remember seeing little kids doing jiu-jitsu. We had some in our gym, but even those kids were all like, oh, I want to be in the UFC, I want to be on the Ultimate Fighter, you know what I mean? So like jiu-jitsu back then, I want to say in like 2012, 2011, I guess, it's more than 10 years now. Jiu-jitsu was like a means to an end for people who wanted to fight in the UFC. And I mean, it's understandable because that's how it was marketed to the world. Royce Gracie comes in the UFC. He does jiu-jitsu. Nobody knows what the fuck it is. They've never seen it before. And he's submitting dudes 2 and 3 times bigger than him, right? So the appeal to jiu-jitsu at the time was, if you do this thing, it mitigates the size advantage that somebody bigger, stronger, and maybe even a better athlete than you has. And I feel like that's accurate to a degree, but it lacks context in today's like the way it's marketing. They're lying to you about the marketing, okay? Joe Rogan, I forget who asked him the question, but there was a quote on his show where they're like, so tell me about this jiu-jitsu thing. And he's like, well, if you and I were to get in a fight, I would kill you. And that was how his description of jiu-jitsu is. But also understand that Joe Rogan was like a world-class Taekwondo practitioner back when they allowed you to fucking hit people in Taekwondo. It wasn't this point thing that you see today. Back when Joe Rogan was doing Taekwondo, they were beating the fuck out of each other using Taekwondo strikes, right? So let's talk about how it's marketed. It is marketed as the ultimate self-defense. If you're going to just do one fucking martial art and you can only pick one, do jiu-jitsu. And I think that's just wrong. I think it's wrong for a couple of reasons. Let's get into the reasons, right? One, it assumes, a lot of jiu-jitsu today assumes that you have some sort of like ability to take a strike, okay? Which isn't true. Mike Tyson has a famous quote. He says, everyone has a game plan until you get hit in the face. Think about the scenarios that people get in, dudes especially, when they get in an altercation. The average drunk asshole on the street that's starting a fight in the bar parking lot, outside of the football game, at a house party, right? What's going to happen when he fights, right? He's going to posture up, he's going to puff out his chest, and he's going to throw a punch. That's how almost every single fight starts. I've almost never seen a fight out in the streets, not like Street Beefs or one of these like YouTube channels where they have guys fight each other and it's organized, but like a fight that starts almost always starts with either a push or a punch. And that's fucking it. Okay, so like, you can't just assume that you're going to be able to work jiu-jitsu into a street fighting scenario. Let's take it a step further. If it's in one of those places, bar parking lot, outside of a football game, outside of a sports event, in someone's backyard at a house party, right? You don't know if this guy has friends. Okay? If this person has friends in today's day and age, you're lucky if no one is, because everyone's so pussy nowadays. You don't know if no one's packing heat or a knife or something like a broken beer bottle that could be very dangerous, an unbroken bottle. So if you do pull guard, or let's say you even get somebody in a standing guillotine, you have to sit there and crank that thing and hold it until the carotid artery loses oxygen to the brain, right? While you're holding it, both arms, okay, that's like the safest technique. You don't have to go to the ground for standing guillotine, right? While you're holding it, you have no use of your arms. Your legs are effectively useless unless you want to pull guard, which I would not recommend doing. And then two, while you're in this position, do you really think if this guy has friends there that you're going to be able to submit him? People are going to fucking jump in. There's no time for this. Now let's talk about the other aspect. If you grab somebody and pull guard, or if you grab somebody and, get into a scramble or something, try to get them on the ground, okay? If you wind up on top, cool. But it's a very specific type of jiu-jitsu gym that focuses on wrestling. There are really great gyms out there, like 10th Planet, for example, that really emphasizes wrestling. I know B Team emphasizes wrestling. I know, like to me, honestly, if you were saying, hey, I have this kid, he's getting picked on, or she's getting picked on, what sport would you have me enroll them in? I would ask a few more questions, but it would come down to these two sports, wrestling and boxing. And here's why. If you are getting bullied in school and you're a minor and it's not a situation where you're in a parking lot or whatever, and kids are just going to hold up their phones and film it. They're not going to jump in or no one's going to try to stomp you out, hopefully. Wrestling is really valuable because two things. One, it builds grit, toughness, and cardio. And two, nobody's good at fighting when they're on their back. Okay, hold on, jiu-jitsu guys. Oh, I'm good at fighting when I'm on my back. Have you ever been double-legged onto concrete or asphalt or a hard dirt ground or even in grass? That shit hurts. It's really hard to start working submissions when you've just been slammed and most likely your head smacked the ground like this. A hard ground, most likely, right? So that's why I say either wrestling or boxing. Wrestling, the danger with that is it's also assuming a one-on-one scenario. The reason why I say wrestling or boxing, and I really think you should do both, because wrestling, if you do it through a school, should be free, right? You have to buy a singlet, I think. But outside of that, you can get free wrestling at your high school. You know what I mean? Boxing is going to cost you money most likely, unless you live in an area where they have like a publicly funded gym, which is awesome. I think there needs to be more of those. But the reason I say boxing over anything else, and I'm a Muay Thai guy, okay? I've been in the cage twice. I've been in way too many street fights, that sounds so douchey, bro, but it is what it is. In my 20s, I was a wild boy, and I was doing MMA, and I was not a good person, and I was starting shit everywhere I went, okay? So that's my background, okay? I've been in the cage 2 times, sanctioned fights. I've competed in Muay Thai, and I've done a smoker boxing match, and I have a point boxing match that I'm trying to line up right now. Okay, so I have a background in martial arts. Also, just so you guys know for context, I have my blue belt in traditional Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, okay? My school that taught Japanese Jiu-Jitsu was also an MMA school. So the instructor, while he would teach us Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, would also tell us like, hey, listen, if you move to mount, like, don't give up that position to try to get a submission, just pound the guy out. So it was MMA-centric Jiu-Jitsu. And we did roll. I've heard a lot of people say that traditional Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, they don't do any practical rolling. We did. So I don't know if I just found the one traditional Japanese Jiu-Jitsu school that fucking did everything, but it was a combination of Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, judo, some wrestling, and like a little bit of, like obviously MMA centric Jiu-Jitsu, which is basically Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Okay, if if you want to defend yourself, boxing is so superior to everything else, in my opinion, outside of wrestling, or if you can find in the States or Europe or wherever you're watching from, a combat sambo school. If you're in Russia, combat sambo covers everything. Just fucking do that. That's just the bomb. I mean, just look at the guys who are winning in the UFC right now, okay? But a Muay Thai guy is telling you boxing, and here's why. In boxing, okay, you're learning head movement right off the bat. You're learning footwork right off the bat. You're learning staying light on your feet right off the bat. And if you only focus on getting better with your hands, then you don't have to worry about time spent kicking a pad, right? Muay Thai guys, if you watch Muay Thai guys, some of them have good head movement, but for the most part, they're hands up, they're coming forward, and they're just fucking tough guys trying to bang it out. They have immense amount of skill. I'm not saying like they're not like crazy talented, because they absolutely are. They will beat your ass, okay? Muay Thai guys are no fucking joke either. But the reason I say boxing is because it shrinks down the variables of things you have to be good at. And this is kind of like a little bit of a lesser thing. This is like depending on where you live. But if you live in Buffalo, New York, right? And let's say you go to a Bills game and somebody starts shit in the parking lot and there's a little bit of ice there, the last fucking thing I would tell you to do is throw a kick. Why? Because you have to stand on one leg, right? That's physics. You have to have one leg on the ground and one leg in the air, unless you're jump kicking, which is even dumber, right? And you have to pivot. So when you pivot your foot on the ground, you're sliding in a circular motion and assuming that the friction is going to be there below your feet, right? While your other leg is swinging through the air. So so many things could go wrong. You know, you could slip, you could pull something, you could pull your groin trying to do that. You could miss the kick and then the guy bum rushes you because now you're spinning around. Boxing, there's no strike that's spinning or torquing. I mean, I guess the hook has some torque to it, but for the most part, you're keeping your target in front of you, okay? That's the goal. You're trying to hit your target, and you can't throw back fists or anything like that in boxing. So in my opinion, you can get better at boxing faster than you can get better at Muay Thai, if that makes any sense. Now, I'm not talking about better at boxing in a boxing context, because if you box and you get in the ring with a guy that's raised in, or a girl who's raised in a boxing family, like a lot of the champions were, where they're boxing basically from diapers on, okay, they're gonna whoop your ass. But I'm talking specifically in a self-defense scenario, your hands are gonna be way better off than the average Joe or average Jill on the streets. They keep telling you if you do jiu-jitsu, okay, you're going to have the ultimate self-defense. And I know some of you guys are going to say, well, my school teaches wrestling. My school does this. I've cross-trained. I've been a lot of different places. And a lot of schools in jiu-jitsu today know they have to motivate people somehow, because they're competing with taekwondo and karate, which have 12-year-olds and black belts because they've been doing it for 4 or 5 years, okay? Jiu-jitsu, you will get outcast and not taken seriously and literally clowned on by the entire community if you're just handing out black belts. So how do we motivate people? Even adults want to have something. They want to have something they can put up on their wall and say, look what I accomplished. Look what I did. This is what I'm doing in my martial art. Nobody gives a fuck if your white belt has another stripe around it. That doesn't mean anything to anybody outside the community. But so what they're doing now is competing. You're seeing jiu-jitsu competitions every city, everywhere. Every major metropolis is having jiu-jitsu competitions every fucking weekend. So that's how they motivate you. Now you get to put medals up on the wall. Now some of them even have belts. You know what I mean? So now you get to compete in this. Competition jiu-jitsu is not fighting. Okay? When people say I have a fight coming up and then I find out it's a jiu-jitsu match, I'm like, Tyler, don't say anything. Don't say anything to these people. And I'm not a hater of jiu-jitsu. I like jiu-jitsu. I still participate in jiu-jitsu occasionally because I coach and train Muay Thai at an MMA gym, and they also have a really great jiu-jitsu program, right? And, you know, I really love it. But I hate the fact that people think that it is the end all be all. If you're going to do one martial art, it's the best one, especially for guys. For women, because there's different scenarios that you might have to defend yourself in where there will be somebody in your guard, so to speak, if you're catching my drift, between your legs, trying to do something that maybe you don't want them to do. Then I think jiu-jitsu, like for women, this whole conversation changes, because I'm not going to tell a woman to defend herself with her hands, right? Like, obviously, just don't sit there and let violence happen to you. But I would say to a woman, I would still say like wrestling first and then jiu-jitsu and then boxing, okay? Because if you do those things, you'll understand leverage, you'll understand, being light on your feet, getting away, right? But if you can't get away, jiu-jitsu this is how I would market jiu-jitsu if I was being honest, but I probably would get no memberships to my gym, so I'd be a terrible jiu-jitsu gym owner, right? I would say this is the ultimate plan B, okay? If you are fucked and you get punched in the face and now you find yourself looking up at a ceiling and your back is on the ground, wrestling is over, because that's considered a pin in wrestling. And fighting is over, because punching like this off your back does nothing to anybody, okay? That's a big nothing burger, okay? But you do have an option if you know jiu-jitsu. Now, if you're conscious and your faculties are all there and you can keep a straight mind, you can start working things like triangles, arm bars, guillotines. You could try to get an underhook and get to your feet. You could try sweeps. You're not dead in the water like 99% of the people who don't jiu-jitsu would be, right? But it's marketed as plan A, okay? And it's also being taught in a sport jiu-jitsu context. That's the most popular type. I'm not saying no one, but most gyms that are popping up in your area are going to they're a business. They want your business. They want you to keep coming back. How do they keep coming back? Putting you in competitions and having you win. No one on the planet who's dumb enough to start a fight, for the most part, right? Like, obviously there's exceptions to the rule, but like, for the most part, any dumbass that's going to start a fight with you, okay, is not going to play jiu-jitsu. That's not how they're thinking. They're thinking, separate this human from their consciousness as quickly as possible, or injure them, or get them to quit, okay? So fists come first, always. There's a saying, even in UFC, every single fight starts on the feet, okay? So be good on your feet. Don't just say, I'm assuming I'm bad on the feet, so let me get good at this other thing. That in itself is a plan B. And let me go back originally to Royce Gracie, okay? Royce Gracie did jiu-jitsu at an extremely high, unseen, unknown about level outside of Brazil and Japan at the time. But if you really study it, their epic battles with the Machado family and all these other families that were fighting in Brazil, they would call it Vale Tudo. What is Vale Tudo? Vale Tudo is basically means anything goes street fight. Okay, so jiu-jitsu became a part of that, because they're like, well, we can choke people out now. We could take people down now. We could fucking submit people. We can also strike. Gracie had a really good front leg kick, okay, that he used that not a lot of people knew how to deal with it. Nowadays, that shit is trash. But back then, nobody was throwing teeps. Everyone in karate is throwing roundhouse kicks, and taekwondo is throwing roundhouse kicks, and kickboxing throwing roundhouse kicks. Very few guys, Thai fighting wasn't even on the radar back then. Very few guys were throwing teeps, and he would throw this front ugly ugly teep kick, front kick, straight down the pipe, and it was annoying, and people didn't know how to deal with it. So even Gracie knew he had to have some level of striking, and he was allowed to wear a gi. There's all kinds of different factors that worked for him back then, but now that everybody is, for the most part in the West, aware of jiu-jitsu and stuff like that, if they just see you try to pull something, they're just going to disengage, back up, and then restart the fight, right? Unless they're a wrestler or something like that. So I really think it's very important for you to understand and really just know that your jiu-jitsu is not useless. It's very useful, but it should never be your plan A, okay? Also, from a legality standpoint, okay, if we're talking self-defense, very few scenarios where you're going to be able to break someone's arm, choke someone unconscious, separate someone's knee, blow someone's ankle out. What other submissions do we know? Dislocate their shoulder from a Kimura or Americana, right? And the court is going to see that as self-defense. Because what is self-defense? Someone is coming at you, you're scared for your life or your safety, and you have to get this person to stop. Now think about this contextually. Let's say you take them down or they take you down. Now you get them in a triangle choke. Great. Choke them unconscious, okay? But they're still going to be on top of you. Push them away and run away. That's your best scenario. But a lot of times, if you move to take someone's back, you move to choke somebody from behind or armbar them, the court may say, well, we understand you were scared initially, but when you took side control and were on top of him or her, and then you put your legs across their chest with their arm in the middle and blew their elbow out, at what point was that still self-defense? Because they were rendered offenseless, right? There's nothing for you to be afraid of at that point. Maybe they're trying to get out, but you blew their elbow out. So it's going to be really hard from a legality standpoint to defend that. Versus boxing, because everything's like this. Okay, somebody's coming at you, bop, hit them with the 1-2, knock them out. It's on film, boom. It's so fast, you can't say, oh, you had enough time to stop. You had enough time to disengage. No, bop, bop, it's over. Bop, bop, it's over. That's it, right? So even from a legality standpoint in courts, it's going to hold up a whole lot better, okay? Multiple attackers. Let's say this douchebag, like I said before, at a party has friends. If you box and knock him out, guess what? You're still on your feet and the next guy's running at you. You can box him or her too. You can't jiu-jitsu multiple people at a time. It's specifically a one-on-one sport, just like wrestling, okay? Boxing, kickboxing, anything with strikes can be used to defend against multiple attackers. Now, my best advice is sock up the guy or girl that's attacking and book it. Get the fuck out of there. Run for your life. Get your cardio up, okay? And, if it is a bully scenario, wrestling is great. Just be sure that there's no other people around that are going to try to fucking, when you're on the ground, stomp you in the back of your head, because that's a real thing that happens. People get jumped all the time. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I love jiu-jitsu. Don't take this as hate. I don't care if you kill me in the comments. It is what it is. But it is not the best form of self-defense or the best way to fight. It's just not. It's the best plan B, guys. And everything is different inside of the cage versus real life. It's a controlled environment. It's one-on-one. It's a soft pad underneath you. And it's a referee that makes sure that there's no illegal strikes to the back of the head or multiple attackers happening. Okay? So that's just kind of how I'm looking at it, man. I'm an appreciator and a person who respects jiu-jitsu guys, black belt guys. But when guys in jiu-jitsu when guys in jiu-jitsu think that they can whoop my ass or whatever, maybe, but you're going to have to get me on the ground first. So if you don't have wrestling and your go-to move is fucking pulling guard or flying triangle, I'm going to shuck that shit off, step back, and I'll keep stepping back until you're going to have to come in striking range first and deal with this shit. Okay? Now, if you're jiu-jitsu with a wrestling background, that's a different story. That's a scary individual. But I'm just saying, I think you strike first. I think I think striking should be above everything outside of wrestling, especially if you're youthful, because that will give you, like I said, cardio and toughness, and you'll probably be. Wrestlers can take a shot, man. I haven't met one wrestler with a bad chin, dude. So I don't know what that is, the correlation there, but wrestlers are fucking tough, and they're the ones getting you on the ground on top, which translates to concrete, which translates to asphalt, which translates to hard dirt, okay? So, Garage Goons, most trash show on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your homies. Thank you for watching, and we are out of this bitch.